Guys, my name is Christian. I'll be talking about Chapter 11, Managing Conflict and the Different Styles of Conflict. Before I begin, I do feel it is important to discuss the definition of conflict before diving deeper into the different styles that associate with it. So I'll be doing that with you guys really quickly. So, conflict essentially is a difference of opinions or goals between two or more parties. Conflict is something that is inevitable, it is something that occurs on an everyday basis, and it is something that many people, including myself, do not like. This can be due to just what we associate conflict with. Normally, we associate it with bitterness, with angerness, with screaming and yelling, and that's something that not a lot of people enjoy partaking in. Even with conflict, many people, in some cases, do lose friendships with their friends, with even families or even loved ones too. Conflict, it's it's really interesting because not many people like it, but it's one of the few things that does help us with character development. It is something that allows us to become better people in the future. It is something that, again, we may not enjoy, but it's something that we can take from it and apply it to other aspects of our life, from school to our jobs to our lives at home to other activities that we have, other relationships that we have with people. It is something that does benefit us at the end of the day. So now I'll be talking to you about the different styles of conflict. As you see here, there's a chart on the bottom right corner. If you guys are ever stuck at all, I would recommend going back to this chart. It's super important, it's super helpful, it's very brief, but it does help differentiate the different styles of conflict. So, avoidance style conflict. Avoidance style is a lose-lose situation for both parties. This is where both parties ignore or steer clear of conflict. Essentially, they're giving each other the cold shoulder. They don't want to deal with the situation that's at hand. They feel that it's a waste of their time, that it's not even worth getting into. With the avoidance style of conflict, it does reveal a pessimistic attitude about conflict. Again, like I mentioned earlier, many people tend to go towards this style of conflict just because, again, they feel it's a waste of their time. They don't want to deal with it at all. They feel that if they avoid it, that eventually that everything will die down with the situation at hand and just everything will go back to normal. This leads into the third point that I make, where it's easier to put up with the status quo than face the problem head on. Again, like the points that I just made a second ago. Avoidance, it's the style that you want to avoid the most because it does lead to unsatisfying relationships. Um, and this occurs when avoidance style occurs over and over and over again. For example, let's say you have a family member, for example, your mom, and she's nagging about you about something that she didn't do, and you choose to avoid the situation that's at hand. Although avoidance can be beneficial, right? It is something that isn't necessarily something that you should be focusing your attention on. It is something where over time, if you continue to ignore it, it'll continue to develop, it'll continue to build up, and then eventually put a harm on your relationship. Not even just with your mother, but even too with your significant other, even with coworkers, even with your best friends too. Um, of the avoidance style of conflict is definitely the one that you want to steer clear of. So accommodation. So accommodation is a style in which you yourself are losing the situation and the person that you're having the conflict with is winning the situation. So accommodation style is where you entirely give in to the others, in this case the parties, rather than asserting your own point of view. The motivation of an accommodator plays a significant role in the effect. If you're accommodating towards a situation in a genuine way because you care for that person, because you don't want to lose that person in your life because they're super important to you, the relationship is most likely to be enhanced. because that other person is going to see your actions and think, wow, this person really does care about not even just me, but the relationship that we have and just what we're able to provide for one another. It does make the relationship more meaningful. However, if the other person doesn't see the actions that you're taking as genuine, right? If they do see it as ungenuine, then people will look at you as a complainer, as a whiner or a martyr. This is because, right, people when you bend around something for them and then you often talk about it saying, "Oh, hey, remember this time I did this for you? Remember this time I did that for you?" Then that's when it becomes a problem because of the fact that you keep bringing up past events that you did for that person to try and build leverage, to try and make that person, feel guilty or something like that, then that's when there's a problem. Then that's when you guys start butting heads, and then who knows what that eventually leads to. Um, Accommodation is huge, especially in cultures, especially with the high context and the low context cultures, right? We know what high context cultures are. This is where there's not many verbal cues. This is where there's a lot of body language involved, a lot of yeses and nos with the shaking of the head, or with others such as bowing or whatnot. Especially with the Asian culture, with the high context cultures, they view this as face saving and noble. So essentially, this means that you are obeying your authority, you're obeying your parents, right, and everything that they tell you to do. Although, right, you yourself are not benefiting from the situation, you're losing it. They are winning it because they see it as you have their respect. And then with the low context cultures, right, such as here in America, right, if you yourself are always bending bending your way around situations to make the other person feel better, then you're viewed as a pushover. You're viewed as docile, or in this case, a doormat where people are going to step all over you. They're going to do whatever they want to do to you, and you're not going to do anything about it because you care too much about other people's opinions. Moving on, there's the competition style. So this is the other way around. This is where you yourself are winning the situation at hand, and the other person is losing in the situation at hand. Excuse me. So there's a high concern for yourself with a low concern for others. So essentially, you want everything your way. You're gonna do whatever you need to do to get it your way, and if you don't get it your way, then you're gonna complain about it. Many Americans follow this competitive approach. This is because we live in a society where names and status they do matter. So anyone will do anything they can to get the upper hand in any situation that they're in. This competitive style of conflict, it can lead to aggression in its different forms. The first one that's mentioned is passive aggression. This is where dissatisfaction is expressed in a disguised manner. This punishes the other person without direct confrontation. And examples of passive aggression include guilt tripping the other person, making them feel bad, saying, "Oh, I'll do everything on my own. I don't need your help. You never help anyways." There can be the typical eye roll. There's the sarcasm too that is involved with passive aggression. And I mean, even to the silent treatment, where you're not going to speak to that person at all because of something that they did, or vice versa. The other person is not going to speak to you at all because of what you did to them. And eventually, again, it's just going to lead to you guys butting heads, and then who knows what it'll lead to in the future. There's also direct aggression, which is the exact opposite of passive aggression. This is where position and dignity of the receiver are attacked. And again, examples of direct aggression include swearing, they can include teasing, and nonverbal cues such as flipping the bird. I think we all know what that means. Um, and this is something that I put for competition. You might win the battle, but you'll lose the war. So essentially, what this means is that yes, you will get something that you wanted your way at the end of the day, right? You'll feel good in the short term, right? Self-satisfaction, but you don't take into consideration how the other person's feeling. You know, for example, if that's your best friend and this competitive style of conflict continues to occur, then then that person eventually may not want to hang out with you anymore. They may feel, hey, this person only they use me to make themselves feel better. And that's something that I can agree and that we all can agree on, that is something that we don't want to happen. So moving on, there's the compromise style of conflict, there's the partial satisfaction. There's not a lot to this because it kind of dives deeper into the last style of conflict. This is where all parties are satisfied, but a sacrifice must be made. And it's a great solution. Compromise style is a great solution to the conflict, but better solutions can be found. Essentially, this is sort of a last resort. This is where, hey, like I want to solve the situation that's at hand, but we can't figure out something, so let's work on this, and then eventually, maybe work something out in the future. And the last style of conflict is the collaboration. This is where both parties win. This is not my way or your way, but it's our way. As you see right on the bottom right corner, you win. If you win and I win, then we both win. This is the most desirable solution to a problem, but this is the solution. This is the style that is the most difficult to obtain, because the needs of all parties need to be satisfied, and this demands that everyone works together, that everyone is on the same page, that everyone devotes their time and effort to solving the conflict that is at hand. And because of these expectations, again, the collaboration style of conflict is rarely met. But it is the most effective. It is the best way to handle um, conflicting events. So lastly, so which style to use? There is no right or wrong style of conflict and how to handle it. You just simply need to approach each situation as its own and act accordingly. Um, and when you do find yourself getting into conflicting situations, just take into conflict the situation itself. Is it a minor situation? Is it a major situation? Is it better to just put it off to the side? Is it something that I need to address right away? Take into consideration the other person and their goals. How they might feel if you come up with this situation, if you come up with solution B, or even two, they might be going through some hardships, some struggles in their own lives. So maybe it's best to, hey, I'm not gonna um, use this solution to benefit myself. I'll use a solution to benefit the other party. So there's that, and then also to take into consideration personal goals. I know I'm kind of twisting myself with what I just said, but also don't allow yourself to be taken advantage of. Again, with the collaboration style of conflict, that's the most beneficial. That's the essential solution to the conflicts. So just take all these into consideration. Excuse me. Again, there's a chart here on the bottom right corner, right? So you have the avoidance where there's no way. There's the accommodation where, hey, I'll bend a little bit to make yourself feel better with the situation. There's the compromise where both ways are satisfied. There's the my way with the competition where I'm only thinking about myself. I'm not even caring about you at all. And then there's the our way with the collaboration parties, where both satisfactions are met. And that concludes the lesson about the different styles of conflict. Thanks, guys, for listening. Hopefully, you guys are all doing well with this coronavirus and everything and staying home, and hopefully, you guys aren't sick. Again, thanks, guys, for listening. Hope you all are doing well. And that concludes the video.